Cosmo Bliss Silken and Soul coming at you from our house. But he's gonna be in our video today. So I've been really wanting to make a video about psychedelics, and the original theme of my channel was about psychedelics and trips and me talking about all of these things because they were really important to me at one point. But I feel like a lot of you guys have probably been wondering why I don't post about that anymore. And a big question is, Silken, are you still using psychedelics as medicine? Because after Peru, like after my ayahuasca ceremonies, I kind of stopped posting about my psychedelic experiences, and I'm not sure if you guys noticed or not, but I did. Kind of intentionally, actually. Am I still using psychedelics? Yes, I am. Am I using them as frequently as I used to? I don't think so. I used to take a lot. I don't want this video to be banned because a lot of my videos have been taken down, so I feel like I have to be careful with the words, but then again, if it's meant to be taken down, I guess it will be anyway. So in the past, I used to take a lot of acid, and when I mean a lot, I mean a few years ago, I started to take like a tab of really, really strong stuff, and I would do this like twice a week, and then throughout the month, like sometimes like, well, I would do like acid, and then I would do mushrooms the weekend, and like I would just constantly, several times a week, take psychedelics. And throughout the years, people have told me I need to be really careful because I have a very sensitive mind, and once you open certain, I suppose, portals within yourself and a certain amount of knowledge within yourself, you have to be mindful of the fact, at least for me, that I'm so easily susceptible to lose myself in that knowledge and in those experiences, and I have done that many times. I've literally hit psychosis on psychedelics so many times, and when I was listening to the Terrence McKenna documentary about his brother and them doing a ton of mushrooms and his brother like going into psychosis, that was kind of a wake-up call, even though like after I watched the documentary I continued to do psychedelics a lot. But I'm still doing them. Like honestly, I don't know, I go through phases. I feel like I respect the fact that if they introduce themselves to me and they're like presented to me, I will take them because it's a sign, but I do not seek them out. And it's funny because I don't seek them out, they constantly present themselves to me now. But my husband and I like both have been like, I'd say pretty into psychedelics. I think like 4 something years ago, he was technically my drug dealer, and he gave me my first dose of Lucy, and we've always enjoyed like being psychonauts and exploring in that way. And I think the challenge now is that we both know consciously we're evolving out of that, yet we still have the tendency to explore in that way. Like the past few months we've been, I feel like every weekend or every other weekend, taking small amounts of acid and mushrooms, and we actually went through a phase of taking a lot of Molly too, like a lot the past year. And for me, I'm done with that because it doesn't naturally occur within your body, and you can feel it, and you can feel your brain melting, and it's not where I want to be and not what I want to explore, and to deteriorate my body in that way. But as for psychedelic medicine, like for instance mushrooms, acid, I don't really do much DMT anymore, even though I have some, and I still see benefit in them, even though, you know, like Alan Watts says, once you pick up the phone and get the answer, hang up the phone. Like, I get that, but I also feel like there is there hasn't been a time where I've taken psychedelics and not received numerous amounts of lessons and answers. So I guess like I still see the purpose in medicinal uses of these things, but I'm starting to, over the years, I do not think everyone needs psychedelics. I do not think that they are the end-all, cure-all, be-all, and I do not think that I will need them long-term, and I think one day I'll completely stop, and that's just the feeling I've been getting. But one of my last ayahuasca ceremonies, I remember specifically, this is why I have this perception about psychedelics and the use of them personally for me now, is because I sat in the Maloka, and a lot of my ayahuasca ceremonies were just super overwhelming and purgative, but this one I gained my strength and I started to use the tools that I used out of psychedelics that I learned from a young age. I was super interested in meditation and breathwork and people like Paramahansa Yogananda and a lot of Eastern philosophy. And I remember on this ayahuasca ceremony, all of these tools that I learned not high came to me, and I sat there in a really meditative state while I was really tripping, and usually I can't do that too well on ayahuasca because everything's so overwhelming. Like DMT has affected me so much in kind of a negative way actually. But so I was sitting there in the ceremony and there was this voice that came over me. It was not mine. It was outside of me. He sang, "Look at you." I can't remember exactly what the words were, but the message pretty much was, "Look at you, a Hindu nun sitting in an ayahuasca ceremony." And it kind of just laughed, like this voice, and then it made me kind of like question and laugh, but at the same time it was so powerful that I've really started to look differently at the use of psychedelics. And I constantly, even from the beginning of like years and years ago when I started using psychedelics, I still remember Ram Dass's guru Neem Karoli Baba and the message of him saying, you can take these psychedelics, you can be in heaven at God's feet, I'm paraphrasing, for 16 hours, but you cannot stay and you have to leave. So why not use the tools and the consciousness that we have on our own without any outside external force, and to build that heaven and to build that God. So my iPhone storage was full. I need to actually buy a camera that is not on my phone so that I can start doing these videos more. But what I was saying before is you do not need to take these external things to get to these places, because every time you take them you realize it's all within anyways. So why not use our tools, our consciousness, our gift to connect with God and to co-create with God and Source through meditation and other things that we've been given inside of our own vessels. And I understand that we're one with everything. I get that. But also, if we were one with everything, we wouldn't need to externalize it in order to become it. Does that make sense? If you are one with it, you wouldn't feel the need to externalize it as a separate entity. Rather, you would just feel the psychedelic or cigarette or whatever it is within you already, and you wouldn't feel this codependency upon it. My ayahuasca ceremony kind of pointed towards the fact that I didn't need to take psychedelics as often as I was, because I was searching constantly for answers, and I realized I wasn't integrating any of the lessons because I, in the past and even presently, still do too much and can't fully grasp what it is I'm supposed to learn from it. I think there is an importance with the use to awaken us to new perceptions, but once we continually attempt to retrieve this undescribable thing and energy, we're almost harming ourselves and using it as if it were an actual drug, which is super ineffective. As you know, you build up a tolerance to it physically, emotionally, spiritually, on a psychic level too. I also want to kind of dive into how ayahuasca changed my experience with psychedelics. My shaman warned me and I didn't really get it, but ever since I did as much DMT, ayahuasca, as I did, so come here, I cannot experience the exact type of purity I used to on psychedelics. Every single time almost, when I take mushrooms, and acid in particular, and sometimes even Molly, and other things like pot, when I ingest these things, it becomes a purgative thing. And I've had many experiences where my DMT trips, my ayahuasca trips, come through acid and other things of the sort, and they make me work really hard on my inner self, and it's no longer a light show. It's no longer, oh, I'm gonna take acid and go to the forest and just have a super peaceful, enlightening time. It's more of just like, what am I suppressing within me? And it's like, let's work on shadow shit. And yeah, my experience, like physically, even with these psychedelics, feels so different now that I've altered my chemistry, my DNA in my brain from DMT. It just isn't the same. And I suppose if you guys, maybe if some of you have done ayahuasca or a lot of DMT, like I have, maybe you have a similar experience, or maybe I'm forewarning you in advance before you do these things. I've just started to realize, though, that not being high is just so sacred. Okay. My phone literally just keeps saying storage full. Last thing I said, not being high is so sacred, and I think we can all relate to that because we've all had those psychedelic experiences where it got so out of control, where you're literally dying. Your ego is just giving up because it doesn't, okay, oh well. Your ego is so at alarm with the fact that it doesn't understand your identity anymore, and so coming down is the greatest gift of all. Waking up to just being an ordinary person with ordinary thoughts and an ordinary mind, and I've had that experience so many times. So that's why I say it's so sacred. And I guess I talked about how I'm trying not to use them as much anymore, but the reason why I'm also not even uploading my psychedelic experiences anymore, because I feel like it was taking away from, or I suppose it was more of my intention was drifting. I would somewhat make these experiences to externalize and to communicate and to share with other people, when in all reality, these are experiences for ourselves. And that may sound selfish because I know it's helped a lot of people, but I just moved into a state of really needing to go more inwards and not feeling the necessity to share these experiences as much anymore. And I know this is somewhat me sharing them in a way. I just don't think it was helpful for me to record them or to the day after even talk about what happened, because since my last video of psychedelics, I don't even know which one that was, I've done psychedelics a lot, like a lot, and they've all been really, really important experiences. I just feel like the more quiet I am about it, the easier it is to integrate, and the easier it is to have a pure intention to actually learn from these lessons rather than have them just be experiences within themselves. Psychedelics are beautiful, and they're totally a part of my makeup, and they're totally a part of Cosmo Bliss. Like, that's why this channel began. But have been actually, for the past few years diving into something, I can't say it's greater, but it's just different. Something that doesn't require that type of high anymore because, I don't know, like, the simple things in life, like, are there to make you feel high. And for me, for instance, those things are, I like to do kirtan, musical meditation, and I like to, I don't know, go into nature and just try to be as quiet as possible because the world of technology and the world of appearance gets at you. And that happened with me with psychedelics, I guess. I just always felt like I needed to share my experiences with people, and you lose something when you do that. Another question is, do I recommend and am I advocating psychedelic use anymore? Because I used to say to people all the time with depressive and anxiety disorders and so many disorders, even eating disorders, to use psychedelics to move through psychological blockages, and I think it's still pretty useful, but I've also seen how I've depended on these for my psychological issues so much that they've kept me in my psychological issues. Depending on the circumstance, I still do recommend it in some ways, but I recommend it in microdoses. I don't think people need full doses of psychedelics, and I've started to really understand the past, I'd say 2 or 3 years, the use of microdosing. And again, when I say microdosing, I'm usually talking about not really a microdose, but like a fourth or a half a tab. But I think I'm going to start going into even less than that, because I've said this in other videos, but when you take a full dose of psychedelics, it becomes a light show, and you're so overwhelmed by the visuals that it's like, can you really integrate what is flowing within you? Can you? Because I can't. Just like DMT, I have so much happening all at once that you come out of it saying, what the fuck just happened? And so with microdosing, I've realized your ego is still conscious. And so you're able to dissect certain emotions and certain feelings and thoughts that keep pointing and triggering you in a more rational way, other than just like floating into this enlightened state, which is beautiful, but you come out of that. And so it's like, are you taking something? Are you really purging what you need to, or are you just kind of using spirituality as a way to remove yourself from that? If you on your own already use psychedelics and are exploring in that way, I'd say start microdosing on small amounts of these medicines, because like I said, it's not a light show. It's all about integrating more thoroughly when you do that. If you have, I say this in every video, but if you have questions, please comment below so that I can make a video about that. And then also maybe make a video with my beloved, because he has a lot of experience with psychedelics as well. So we have a lot to share about it, but I'd like to just remind you, I'm trying to gear my channel more towards other topics now, and I hope you're okay with that. And I know a lot of you followed me originally for that reason, but this is a part of my journey, and if you're not into it anymore, then that's okay. Thank you for listening. Blessings to you all.